Okay, hello everyone. I'm real happy to see you all here. I want to welcome you for the research committee of EAGT. The research committee is organizing this seminar, and I'm really happy there are so many of us here. Originally, when Gianni, come here, please. Because Gianni is the initiator of this. He had the original idea to organize a seminar like this, but when he was speaking about it, we didn't expect so many people. We were like quite worried if people are interested in research, especially Gestalt therapists, if they are interested in research. And Jelena was also helping a lot, organizing the seminar. Maybe she'll tell you a bit about that.
Thank you, Jan. I just want to say, wow, so many psychotherapists that are interested in research, and I was responsible for financial situation of this seminar, so I'm very happy that we succeed. This idea was born last year during our meetings in Amsterdam, meetings of the research committee. And actually at that time, most of us was very suspicious if this will be successful, having in mind the topic that is on the table. But I'm really glad that we succeed and that more and more people in psychotherapy, not just in Gestalt, but now in Gestalt, are interested in this. Because I'm sure that without research we could not move on in the future and have a good ground for our modality. So I'm really glad that all of you are here. I would like also to thank each NOCT representatives and each country that involved people from there, because now we have many nationalities, so it's international event, and I'm really glad about it. And you will see later we will talk about process groups, and we try to share different nationality in each group. We try to do that. I would like to welcome you in Rome, to have good 3 days of learning, joy, and to have good memories when you come back home. Thank you. Gianni, if you...
Can you hear me? Yes? Okay. So I was thinking just to welcome you, because I have the first speech of this afternoon. So I'm just impressed by how many people responded to this proposal to have an educational seminar on research in Gestalt therapy. So I'm really impressed. I'm really happy about this. Can you hear me? Yes, now? Even too much? No? Yeah? Okay? Okay. And so I think it's a really a good starting point for our community to build networks in research on international level. Jan, you want to say something about some organizational points? Yes?
I'll try this. Okay. So a few just remarks to the organization. We want to thank Marja a lot, who is in the back there, who is giving us support. And so if you need something practical to arrange, come to her or come to us with Yelena, and we are taking care of the practical arrangements. There is one point I want to say about this evening. We will, after Phil Brownell's speech today, in the evening, we have a short break, which in your program is called coffee break, but we were discussing it now, and it seems to us that we are both doctors, Gianni and me, and it seems to us that it's too late for coffee. So it will be, yeah, it will be only break, not a coffee break, and it will be a bit shorter because we want to form the groups. So we will use part of the break to form the groups. We will tell you a bit more about that. And this is part of our idea, not only to make this seminar educational, to teach some methods, but also to make it a place for a meeting, to building the community of Gestalt researchers. So the groups will serve this purpose. And then after the groups, we will meet here at 8. I mean, the people who are going to Sistina Chapel tonight, there's an organized visit of the chapel. So who want to go together with us, we will meet where? Gianni? Here, okay. Okay, so we'll meet here at 8. And that's, yeah, I also wanted to ask all the presenters for coming here to prepare and to invest the energy to present here. So thank you for coming. And yes, and I think here and now we have the biggest concentration of EAGT presidents in the world now. Yeah, I think we have 4 of them here now. Yeah. So I give my word to one of them. Gianni, could you please take on?
Thank you. I will try with this.
Okay.
Okay. So I was requested to do a welcoming speech, but Jan welcomed already you. And so I will try to say something about, first of all, the motivation of this seminar, what moved us as EAGT to support this kind of seminar, and then to say something about my experience in bridging the gap between clinical practice and research, because I think this is one of the main points we are focusing on in these days. Today in the afternoon we will have more speeches about the frame of this seminar, and then from tomorrow morning we will enter in specific methodologies of research in therapy. Okay? I think that the motivation of this seminar on research in Gestalt therapy started from the awareness of a risk. And the risk is the risk of being, as Gestalt therapists, excluded from future developments in psychotherapy, because psychotherapy is developing through research, publication in scientific journals, where psychotherapists try to describe what they are understanding and doing in therapeutic process. If we miss the chance to enter in this dialogue, to belong to this community, we really risk becoming more and more isolated. And I can see the situation as EAGT president, as former chair of the Training Standard Committee of the EAGT, and also as international trainer. And in many Western countries, there is a crisis in process, training institutes that are not finding trainees for starting new training programs, or in some countries, Gestalt therapy is not recognized by the state or insurance companies as an accredited model of psychotherapy. So I think that the reality is that there is a crisis and there is a risk to become more and more isolated. So this is the first motivation that moved us to propose this seminar. A movement towards, I would say, the contact boundary of Gestalt therapists in order to meet a wider community of clinicians and researchers. There is another motivation that moved us, and I think that the other motivation is the richness of our approach. As probably all of you, I'm in love with the theories and practice of Gestalt therapy. And I think that Gestalt therapy has given a lot and is giving a lot to the psychotherapy world and also to the wider world in terms not only of the psychotherapy but also in terms of social analysis or political vision. And I think that we can be proud of our approach, of course, but to be proud doesn't mean to be self-sufficient. No one organism is self-sufficient. To this regard, I think we have to be able to combine our pride as Gestalt therapists to the humbleness to learn and to use the language of the wider psychotherapy community. And as Gestalt therapists, and moreover as trainers or people involved in the organizations, I think I was saying as Gestalt therapists, but also as people involved in the organization, we have the responsibility to have a vision for the future. And the vision that supports this process of this seminar is that Gestalt therapists enter more and more in dialogue with the wider community of psychotherapists. We have also the responsibility to transmit to our trainees an open horizon, rich in connections and possibilities, in dialogical bridges, in mutual learning, and not a closed, elitist, or self-sufficient world. The question is, what kind of research can support this vision? Surely, a research respectful of our epistemology, our soul, our interest, our theory, and our practice. In the book, in our foundational book by Peirce, Efferland, and Goodman, there is a chapter where the splits present in the culture are mentioned. You can remember body-mind split, theory practice split, individual social, conscious, unconscious, etc. They proposed to overcome these neurotical splits through the method they called Gestalt therapy. If we wrote today our foundational book, we should mention another split that our founders didn't mention. I think it's the split between research and practice. Let me say a few words about this gap. In the history of research in psychotherapy, different phases can be identified. I don't want to enter too much in this, but a first phase was interested in knowing the outcomes of psychotherapy. The question was, does psychotherapy work? This phase lasted mainly from 1950 to 1970, and it's the research on outcomes of psychotherapy. Today the answer is clear, and the answer is yes, psychotherapy is effective. And we can add today with the new research, psychotherapy is cost effective. About this, you can read the official paper of the American Psychological Association, August 2012, where it's very clearly said that psychotherapy is an effective and cost-effective method. But step by step, another question emerged that is not about the outcomes, but about the process, how psychotherapy works. This is a question about the process, and we are still in this phase of evaluating processes in therapy. One interesting point is that researchers discovered a paradox about this. The more the design of the research is good in terms of hard sciences, the more research is useless in psychotherapy. The more is randomized with precise and rigid procedures, careful selection of patients and therapies, the more is perfect in these terms, the more is far from the real clinical situation. From this observation, a new trend has emerged: the need to do research starting as far as possible from the real clinical situation. So there is a need for researchers to be close to practice. But we can ask, we have the opposite need as clinicians to be involved in research processes? Okay, I described the political need in order to be recognized and have a good reputation in the psychotherapeutical community. We have to do research, okay. But I want to bring this question also on a more clinical level. It is, we can have some benefits as practitioners, as clinicians, in being involved in research, in bridging this gap between practice and research that I think is a neurotical split. So about this, I would like to share my personal experience. I'm aware that it's just an experience, it's not a model that I want to propose to you. But when I was a young medical doctor and a young psychiatrist, I did a lot of quantitative research on drugs, on psychosomatics, on chronobiology, and I did some very interesting research in these topics. But step by step, I lost my interest in it, and now I know why. The problem was that I was interested in helping people in my clinical work, and this research was disconnected from the clinical work. There wasn't feedback coming back from that research on the way I was working with my clients. So I went away from research for almost 10 years, totally entering in my practice as a psychotherapist and studying Gestalt theory as deeply as I can. Then again, I felt that something was missing. I didn't know what, just something. In the last years of the 90s, I started to have many patients with panic attacks, and I looked at journals and books in order to understand better this kind of suffering. It's more or less 20 years ago. I found many papers from cognitive behavioral approach, something from psychodynamic, nothing from Gestalt therapy perspective. What I was missing became clearer, a way to share clinical understandings between Gestalt therapists. I was astonished. The approach that transformed me from a medical psychiatrist to a Gestalt psychotherapist hadn't developed any kind of explicit psychopathology, even though the theoretical basis was already there in the foundational book, and the practical application were also there in the work of my trainer, supervisor, therapist, and in my own practice too. So, I started to use a phenomenological method for doing research on my clinical practice, and this for me was a turning point. From that moment, this attitude has become one of the most important experiences in my practice. I started to understand my clinical work in a new way. I started to be enlightened by new insights more and more, to have a clearer understanding of my work. I was able to describe it, and it was useful for new patients and for discussing with colleagues. Using a phenomenological method for 5 years, I elaborated a model for understanding and working with patients suffering from panic attacks. And I started to write on this subject. The first book on panic attacks came out, now printed in 6 languages. Then I developed a model for depressive experiences, almost 4 years of research on my clinical work. And then the first handbook on Gestalt psychopathology come out. Started with Michela Gecele and Jan Rubal in 2007 and come out after 6 years of work in 2013. 54 authors from 23 countries, supported by the EAGT. Now translated or in process of being translated in French, in Spanish, in Italian, in German, in Romanian, in Russian, in Polish, perhaps in Chinese. An interesting phenomenon. A book translated before being read. This means that this book, a perspective on psychopathology trying to bridge gaps between theory and practice, is meeting a need in our field. And I think that is the need not to be isolated, to share our understanding, to teach and learn from each other. I know that this is not enough. This book is a starting point for research, qualitative and quantitative research, and I think it's up to the Gestalt community to go on with this. The book is dedicated to Isador Fromm, not by chance. He worked and taught in order to make Gestalt therapy a serious and well-established clinical method. Isidor indicated a way. Interestingly, he didn't write. He said that writing is for novelists and poets. On this point today, I mean in this actual context that is different from the context where Isador lived, today I can disagree. In order to overcome the gap between research and practice, sometimes we have to be poets, sometimes mathematicians, sometimes we have to tell through numbers, sometimes through poetry. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of creative adjustment in order to support the figure to emerge, following our aesthetic method, the creation of what matters for us as Gestalt therapists, an emerging good form at the contact boundary. In these days, we will experiment some ways to join research and practice. Don't think this is a ready menu that we have prepared for you. It's not like that. The process of establishing research in Gestalt therapy, as every vital process, will need a lot of creative adjustment. The creative adjustment implies commitment, and commitment implies presence. So in these days, sometimes this could be tiring, sometimes this could be funny, it doesn't matter. If we are able to stay present, the result will be beauty. So this is the frame of this seminar. I think this is the political and also clinical meaning of committing our community to research. Before closing, I want to thank some people that are making possible to be here and to teach and learn each other in these days. I think that we are in these days a community, a learning, teaching community, because I know that many of you are already involved in process of research. So I think we have to provide a possibility to a mutual teaching and learning. I want to thank, first of all, Jan Rubal, Jelena Zeleskov-Dioric, and Marga Berends that, along with me, have organized this seminar. I want to thank the research committee, the executive committee, and the general board of the AGT that have supported this event. I want to thank the Italian National Organization for Gestalt Therapy, the SIPC, for having co-organized this event. In particular, Michele Cannavò and Elena Guerri. Elena Guerri cannot be here in these days because of familiar problems. Then I want to thank the EAGT past presidents. Yes, the concentration of EAGT presidents in this room is impressive. Margherita Spagnolo-Lob, Ken Evans, Peter Schultes, yes, for being here to bring their contribution, I would say their wisdom. And it's not by chance that all the past presidents are involved in research personally and professionally. I want to thank to all the speakers for their generosity in coming here and to share their experience with us. A special thank to Philip Brownell for his long journey from the Bermudas in this raining place. And thank you for your effort to establish a tradition in Gestalt therapy about research field. I want also to thank the colleagues that are present here but are not Gestalt therapists. There are in the group some colleagues that are trained in other modalities. I'm very happy that some people are interested in our seminar and coming from other modalities. So welcome in our community in these days and in this learning process. And then, of course, I want to thank a lot all of you, because it's because of your interest that we can be here and we can support this starting movement in the EAGT community. So I wish to all of us fruitful, joyful, and very productive work for this day. Thank you very much.